Welcome to Pricking the Bubble. My name is Mike the Llama, and our special guest this week is the same guest we have every week, Dr. Brant Raven. Welcome back.
Thanks, Mike the Llama. How are you? How are you this week?
Oh, I'm all right. I was a little fired up last week, but
You were. No,
right.
that's definitely a good thing.
I've taken my medicine, and I'm all right now.
No, really, being fired up, nothing wrong with that. I think it's really, really great to see that passion come out.
Or to hear it, and the best way we can hear it is via Audio Pete. Welcome again.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Audio Pete,
Yes,
we are
I'm
nothing
welcome,
without
Doctor.
you.
Well, that's right.
I remember that.
That's right. Not only is he the way we get heard, he's our fact checker.
Our fact checker, our number one fan.
That's fact.
Fact
checker.
checker.
Not fat checker.
Not a fact checker, no.
Although there's a lot to be checked, but
That's why are you looking at me when you say that? That's very rude and hurtful.
our number one fan and our number one, possibly our only listener. No. I'm sure that's not true.
That's true. My mother's listened several times.
That's
All right. This week, we'll get straight into it. It's a tricky one for me, and I'll explain it when we get into it.
Here we go.
I'd like to discuss the death penalty.
Oh, death penalty. Okay.
And when I was selecting this topic, I came at it from a position of actually having no idea where you would fit. Not as a victim or as a... someone who is going to have it done. I'm not sure where you come from. So let me put it to you that I used to be a very strong advocate and believer in the death penalty.
Right.
And
Now you've changed your mind.
I have changed my mind.
Why is that?
All right. What the situation was this: I was at dinner with the family, so my parents as well, and we were having it. It was a couple of years ago. I think it was after a terrorist incident, or a mass killing, one of these things. And I said, this person they should just kill them. Don't, no mucking around. You're wasting time even discussing it. We should do it. And my dad said to me, he said, what if I had committed a crime? And I said, all right. And he said, what if I'd killed some people? I said, did you really do it? And he said, yes. And he said, would you want me to die? And I thought, well, you know what? I probably wouldn't. And he just kind of raised his eyebrows at me. That's the end of it. I don't want him to die, even though he's been a mass murderer or he's killed some people, or he hasn't, no offence if he's listening. And so that put it in perspective for me. I thought to myself, it's very easy for me to sit back from a position of no involvement whatsoever, but suddenly when something becomes personal to you, you can change your mind and you can do a complete about face, because most of the time we hear about the rights of the victim or the victim's family, and victim's family, sometimes a lot of them are, I want, whether it's revenge or I want some sort of punishment for the person who's killed my family member. But what about the parents or the family of the person who has killed those people? They don't want them to die. And so you're suddenly in a position where if you make it personal to you, it's a lot harder to say, yep, go for it. Kill that person. I support the death penalty. And even if, as he said, he walked it through me. He said, they find me guilty. I've said that I've done it. Are you going to then stick by me and support me and say and go for the appeals to try and stop me from getting killed? And the answer is yes, I would. There you go for it. How do you feel about this?
It's a tough one. I really don't know.
Before I said that, how did you feel about it?
Even then, even before you said it, I still don't know. I find your reasoning really ridiculous.
Yeah, well, it's ridiculousness often brings out, things
just
to
because
discussion.
I find it ridiculous because it's your father,
yeah,
right?
who was not a killer,
right? Or a relative, or whatever the case might be. I don't know where I sit on this. I think, I really don't know. I think if it's just too hard to say.
So maybe if we work on the position of, if you were to support it, so let's put the position out that the three of us here support it, what sort of things would we support? So for what sort of crimes would we say it's at least on the table?
Well, Okay, you mentioned terrorism, and I've got an issue with terrorism as a definition because one person's
There's another one's freedom fighter.
yeah, one's terrorism is another one's activist, right? So I've got a problem with that. But in a situation where it's shown without doubt that, say, some person has murdered another person, I really would find it difficult to keep the murderer alive. I would find it really difficult to say not only are you keeping that person alive, but you are actually burdening the state with the care of that person, because if that person is incarcerated, which presumably they would be, you have to care for that person. And if that person falls ill, you've got to take care of them, you've got to feed them, you've got to house them, you've got to clothe them. So there is a financial impact. And for what? And why are you keeping the person anyway? I mean, it becomes a tough question as to why that person is incarcerated when it's so clear cut that they've done this heinous crime. Yes, I can see it from the perspective that if that person was related to me, I may not want that person to die. I sort of get that. But I don't know whether that's a really good enough reason to say, well, so personally for me, I don't want them to die, but so that's a good enough reason to protect them from the death penalty. I don't know.
Look, the reason that it came up is in that specific example, I guess, is a lot of the issues that are very personal to people I'm friends with are not necessarily personal to me. But I still, to a certain extent, support them. I support those issues because I'm aware that it is something that's personal to a person. If it's someone who is in a position of hardship or someone who's in a position of being prejudiced, having things, they're being unfairly treated just because of who they are. I know that's a bit different if it's something that you've done. But the principle's kind of the same for me. So
what's the actual theory behind the death penalty anyway? I mean,
that's the question.
What's the theory, right? I mean,
Pretty sure it's not rehabilitation.
Right.
Okay, we could rule out rehabilitation,
which is part of our criminal justice system is punishment and rehabilitation.
I mean, is the theory that it's a punishment?
It's a punishment, and you know what? It's kind of revenge.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm not sure that revenge is a good thing, is it?
I don't know. I think it's undersold.
I think
it kind of makes us as bad as the perpetrator in some way.
Does it really?
Yeah. Well, if you want the purposeful death of someone, and you're trying to kill someone who wanted the
But
purposeful
couldn't
death of
I could
another
look
person.
at this in a very rational way, and I could say, well, I've got this guy who murdered someone. That particular guy has a certain genetic propensity. Whether it's emotional based or any other based, there's potentially something genetic there. By me executing them, I'm actually removing that defect from the gene pool. I could make that argument.
You could. I would say that.
And maybe there is or isn't evidence.
No, that could be for people. I would say for things like pedophiles and things like that. You're unlikely to change. You're unlikely to rehabilitate.
Yeah,
a
pedophiles
pedophile.
is an interesting one. You see, pedophiles is really interesting because, I don't.
Or maybe if they're a pedophile and a child murderer, so they're doing.
But hang on. If you just look at pedophiles in isolation, they haven't murdered anyone. Let's say it's just a pedophile. Again, I absolutely don't understand pedophilia at all because I don't have any desire or emotion toward children. Thank the heavens that that I'm not that way. And in fact, I so don't understand it that to me it must be an illness that they have, right? So to me do I execute someone that has an illness? Would I execute someone that's in a wheelchair because they couldn't walk? Well, no, I wouldn't. In the same way, do I execute this person?
Yeah, but hold on. There's a flawed argument. Then they're not harming anyone else by being in a wheelchair.
Well, that's exactly. Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. That's a great point.
It's in fact my only point.
So, I mean, there's a good point there. if you've got someone that's murdered someone else and it's shown without a shadow of a doubt, your dad's argument of would you want that for me? Well, no, I wouldn't. But then on the other side, wouldn't want you to be a murderer either.
Yeah, but that's
and
already
argue,
happened for this argument.
And I would argue, if you are a murderer, if you've murdered someone, you've ceased to become my father. I would look at that argument and say, well, is this really the father that I have?
It's probably easy to say that when you are being removed from it, when it's your dad saying it straight to you, I guess, as you've said, you've still got those emotions that he's not a murderer in your system, in your brain, and he's saying, well, by the way, I am. And so you have to deal with something that you're suddenly not quite...
Yeah, look, I don't know. It's a really, really tough one. It's again, in a lot of cases where an act has been committed that is just so totally heinous, and you read about it or you hear about it, I always think to myself, the only argument that I can make for not having the death penalty is that it's too damn quick. Right? It's like that. Recently happened. That 17-year-old in the UK that picked up a 6-year-old and threw them off the roof,
off the balcony or whatever
of the Tate Modern in London. Right, 17-year-old, which I can't even imagine what that parent. I can't even imagine. Right, now if that 6-year-old dies. And the 17-year-old is convicted of murder, the only problem in my mind that I would have to not execute that 17-year-old, the only problem would be that it's too quick. I don't have any problem with the execution itself. It's only that it's too quick.
Do we establish why he did this?
No, I don't think it's
so what if he has a mental illness?
Well, that opens up the case for extenuating circumstances. So I don't know. I don't know. It's difficult. It's too damn hard.
What if they're mentally deficient? There's a big issue in the US about when you've got someone on death row, lawyers try very hard to demonstrate that they're below a certain IQ. Because you can't execute someone below, I'm not sure what it is, it might be 60 or 65. But then IQs change over time, so they're trying to say when they were tested, when they were convicted 20 years ago, the IQ is actually, because the mean IQ has gone up, that their IQ has dropped 1 or 2 points in comparison. And so they're trying to say, well, now they're actually below that IQ. So there's issues there with how...
but you see, that doesn't really pass the pub test, though, doesn't it? I mean, it's if you really have to try that hard, you've got to think about it and say,
Well, lives are in the balance because of that argument in the US.
The argument you gave as well before the podcast began about the Port Arthur killer, so that Martin Bryant, how many people he killed? Like 30-something people. And he has, we don't have the death penalty here, but he's in jail. But he would argue, or his lawyer would argue, that he has diminished responsibility because he has such a low IQ as well. But when that happened at the time, I think he would have found very few people who would have said, oh, no, we'll just put him in jail. Most of them would have been saying we should kill him. We should have him executed, because you don't accidentally just kill 35 people.
Yeah, okay, so I don't buy the idea that if you execute someone, you are as bad as they are. I don't buy that argument. All right, I think we live in a society with rules and laws. We may not like some of those rules and laws, but we have to abide by what exists. And if we don't like them, we try and do what we need to do to change them. But again, my only issue is that it's too quick. So take Martin Bryant, for example, killed 30 people in cold blood. Whether he had diminished responsibility or not, I don't know. The argument could be made. For me, the only problem I have with executing that guy, too quick. Too quick. You've compressed the 30 lives that he's taken and the immeasurable pain that he's caused all those associated with those 30 lives. You've compressed it in what, an hour or two where he's killed or where he's executed. That's the only problem I have with it. So in a lot of ways, I'd rather keep him in jail just so he can experience the daily pain.
Well, that's certainly one argument for not having the death penalty, is
Right.
that the person has to live with their guilt.
But then,
assuming he does have any
But
guilt.
then, playing the same argument back to that situation, am I now a horrible person because I want him to experience the daily pain? You know, I'm horrible and the same as him if I want to execute him.
Well,
But
we've established.
what am I if I want to? If I
But
want
we've
him-
established that he's not going to be rehabilitated, because if he has a mental issue, he's not going to be rehabilitated. So he is effectively being there for punishment. So your argument, how old is he? He's going to be in his 30s, I guess.
No, he's my age. He's 51.
Is he?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, there you go. Maybe that's when it happened. Maybe I looked at you and thought you were in your 30s.
Impossible.
He has to deal with that for quite a long time, because presumably he's going to be in jail for a long time.
Oh, hang on. If you're 51,
He is too.
Mike, how old are you?
Not 51.
Gee, that must make me the youngest one here. If there are any ladies listening. Let's keep going.
Yeah, good. I'm glad you slipped that into a conversation about the death penalty. Anyway, you've thrown me now. I'm not quite sure where I'm going.
He was 26
I'm
when
very
he committed these crimes.
Was he?
Yes.
96, and interestingly enough, he was the
thereabouts.
the thing
28.
that sort of instigated the gun buyback, which got
Yeah.
rid of
he
things.
was.
So if you ever want to find if you're one of those glass half full type people, he helped to get rid of guns in Australia. I think that's a long bow being drawn there, but. No,
I think one of the issues that I was thinking about is that.
Sorry, I'm still
if you're
disturbed
gonna-
about what he was doing.
Like I agree that killing someone is too quick a punishment for him in a lot of ways. I think these sort of crimes should be punished with a lifetime of isolation from not having the ability to communicate with anyone, especially any victims.
Yep.
Which tends to happen sometimes in the US, where they're allowed to have contact with women. Women, there's a bunch of people on death row in America who have lots of women sending in letters and things like that.
Trying to marry them and all, and we love you.
I don't think that,
what is that?
that's a quite weird thing, and I don't think that should be a possibility. If you're going to put someone away, they shouldn't be able to have contact
Well,
with.
I
the
agree.
outside
It should be an element of eliminating their freedom, and that's the punishment. I think. I mean, killing them to a certain extent, it might rid of us of the problem, but they're not actually being a problem anymore. We want them to be punished, and whether you say that's a long time or it's not quick enough or whatever, whether that's considered to be torturing. Maybe you're torturing this person over 40 years by keeping them in isolation. I think tough toenails. It's you're locking them up. You're removing their ability, as you say, to communicate with people, and that's it. That's, as far as I'm concerned, that's it. We shouldn't hear from you again. You have forfeited your right for any fairness or it's fair, but any further fairness with respect to you. So
it's just a tough question. I'm all for the punishment. I mean, definitely you have to be all for the punishment. What else can you be for? I agree. Isolation. Look, if you said to me they're going to be isolated, they're not going to be communicated with any people, they're going to be there forever, they've definitely done this crime, then you know what? I'll forgo the death penalty. I'll say let's be decent in ourselves and not take their life. But a lot of people who are against taking the life are doing so for religious reasons.
yeah,
A lot of it. I mean, from a social perspective, I don't think taking the life is a big deal. I don't think it's a problem. From a social perspective, I'm saying, right?
yeah.
I don't know.
I do want to go back to something you said before about the cost of keeping the person in prison, in particular someone who's committed a crime when they're quite young. Who's the other one we said before? Julian Knight, who was a Hoddle Street massacre here back in the 80s. He's been in jail all this time, and he was quite young. He was only in his early 20s or something.
I think he was 19.
19. So, and he's not getting out. So he's going to be in jail for a very long time.
Julian Knight.
Yeah. So you think about the cost that, you know, if he lives into his 80s, that's a very long time.
It is.
And an awful lot of money. However, I think if you're worried about the cost, and so therefore you're saying, well, we should kill this person, that's a pretty terrible argument.
No, I agree with you. I don't think I'm necessarily saying that. I'm not saying. Yeah, I'm not necessarily saying that. I'm not saying this person should be executed because it would cost too much money. I'm not saying that, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad argument.
I don't agree. I think it is. I think it's a bad argument.
Well, why do you think? Well, how can you possibly think that's a bad argument? I mean, I'm not saying that should be the prevalent argument, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad argument.
No, it's a bad argument because if you
how
say...
how much does a criminal cost?
But that's what I'm going to say. If you're saying, well, it costs $100,000 a year and we're going to keep them there for 40 years, that's a ridiculous amount of money. We should execute them. What if it costs $10 a year? Oh, okay, that's okay. Well, we'll keep them alive.
Well,
You've eliminated what the actual issue is. The issue is about whether you should kill them or not whether it costs enough. Making it an economic argument actually cheapens the argument, I think.
But making an economic argument puts real numbers into the system, right? Again, I'm not saying we should use that argument, but for those that want to use it, I think there are better arguments that can be made.
It's a secondary issue.
It's a contributory argument, right? It really is. If housing someone is $100,000 a year, is it $100,000?
No, I just pulled the number out of my butt.
Well, okay, okay. I don't know.
I don't know either.
It's something like $300,000 a year to keep an ordinary prisoner in prison.
No, it can't be that much.
It's quite a lot because a lot of infrastructure has to be built from. And in the US, it actually costs more to execute someone than it is to keep them in prison for the rest of their life because
of all the appeals and stuff.
Yeah, that can run into millions really quickly. And that's far more than it would cost them to keep.
So they should execute everyone. Because
so I mean, there's look, I don't know. It's all too bloody hard.
I know. That's why we're having these conversations because they're not because they're easy to solve.
I'm saying you can't simply ignore the economic understanding of it. You can't simply say, here's this guy, we know that he did this crime because he's either admitted to it or whatever the case might be. We know he did this crime. Right, we are now going to saddle the state with this amount of money for this guy's care for the next 100 years. Right? Whatever. I don't know, 70 years. 70 years for his life, until his life, right? Yeah. Take the 17-year-old.
Yep.
We know he did that.
Yep.
Right? The kid's died. God, I hope the kid hasn't died.
Yeah, I'm
right?
sure
I really hope...
If only there was some way to find out.
Hang on. I hope the kid hasn't died. I think he's in intensive care and he's in a critical state. But I really pray to the universe because that's the only thing I believe in. That the kid hasn't died. But let's say
our fact-checking machine is in.
Let's say the kid's died, and it's undoubted that the 17-year-old has done this.
Yep.
Right. So now he's going to live. He's now incarcerated for the rest of his natural life.
Yep.
What, another 80 years maybe? Let's just say, I don't know, 70 years at least. Say, right? And it's going to cost $300,000 a year. So what's that, 2.1 mil? Or is that 21 mil?
But he is a child, though, don't forget. 17, you're still considered a child. What about those ones who killed the, what's his name, Bolger?
Oh, don't even get me
I mean,
started.
they were 10 or something, weren't they? And they're out. They're both out, I believe. But they've got new names. And, they're back in society over there. But when you're a child, I guess it's a bit different. I mean, let's assume that this guy was 18 doing it, and he's treated as an adult. Yeah, look, the cost is a lot, but I still come back to that argument that's a secondary issue. That the main issue is the moral issue. Should we kill this person or should we not kill this person? Audio Pete, do you have an answer for it?
He's still alive. They suspect that the 17-year-old suffers from schizophrenia.
Right, so mental impairment.
Right. Yeah, I mean, again, yes, there are extenuating circumstances. Look. I don't know. I would want to look at the parents as well. I would want to look at the parents of these people and say, well, okay.
What do you think? Was that where we're going, or
what? No, not the parents of the victims.
Oh, parents. Okay,
of the perpetrator. Yep. I would want to look at the parents of the perpetrator and say, well, you know, what have you guys done? Have you guys done or not done something that has affected this perpetrator to be this way? I don't know. I don't think it's good enough to say, oh, I'm going to saddle the state with the care of this person forever. I just don't think that's good enough to say. And then you're going to have all the social activists that are going to come out. Oh, well, you can't kill him, and you can't keep him in this weird condition, and you can't keep him in jail forever. He's got to get out at the age of 80. Well, suddenly the life that they've taken is being cheapened.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Or is it a case of, well, we are still stopping this person from ever doing anything again, but at the same time we're kind of respecting ourselves by not sinking to his level. The thing that Peter said before, we're not doing the same thing. We're not lowering ourselves to the same level as the criminal by killing someone in return. I mean, there's a fine line between revenge and punishment, and I just think that it should be more about punishment rather than, it's an eye for an eye. That's kind of Bible stuff. I'm not sure that I'm not a fan of the Bible, so I'm not sure I want to...
if you look at countries that do use the death penalty quite a lot, it's quite frightening because they don't confine it to just the murderers and things that we...
Yeah.
They extend it to many different crimes and, political dissent and things like that as well. So
you're talking, in that case, about a...
well, it's a slippery slope argument.
It is, yeah.
Because if you allow it, then what do you allow it for?
You're talking about a despotism then, aren't you?
The Brunei, back earlier this year, introduced they've slowly been bringing in their Sharia law, I believe, and part of that was they could stone gay people to death. There's a capital punishment, death penalty. Yeah,
but you cannot say, you can't make the extension. You can't say, well, if you murder, if you execute murderers, known murderers, now you're on the slippery slope to stoning gay people. I don't necessarily think you can make that argument. If you want to stone gay people, then you're fucked up to begin with, right? Seriously.
Well, that's true.
If you honestly think that, first of all, there's just so many things that could be said about this, right? I mean, why are you stoning gay people? Are you stoning gay people because that's your religious belief?
I would say that would be the case.
No, but I
can't think of any other reason that you'd be...
Well, there you go. There's the fucking stupidity of it. I would say you're not stoning gay people because of your religious belief. You're stoning gay people because of your own belief. You're stoning gay people because you've got a prejudice against them, and you're using your religious belief to support that prejudice. It's it's the same argument, right? I agree. It's the same argument. Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. I'm saying I don't really see the slippery slope. If you've got a reasonably civilized society, I don't see this. What is civilized anyway? I don't know.
Well, you think the Nordic countries, that guy in I forget which. Was it Norway?
Yeah. Who went to that island and killed.
Now, under their laws, he can't be kept in prison, I think, longer than 20 years.
Absolutely right.
That's the most. That's the highest.
Oh, wow.
Sentence.
So he gets out.
So he'll be, and he's only in his 30s.
They don't have the death penalty there, obviously, as well.
No. And I don't think they could conceive of anyone doing anything that would be.
Well, that's true. Maybe crimes have gone past the existing penalties and things.
What will happen? Like he'll be out in his 50s, probably.
Yeah, I have a sneaking suspicion he wasn't likely to be rehabilitated either. So that's a tricky situation. Wow, 20 years. It doesn't seem. Yeah. The other things I wanted to ask about, so death penalty. So we're assuming that we're doing it. One of the arguments that people put forward is that it's a deterrent to others.
Yeah, I think that's been shown
To not be the case.
a number. I've got to go with the evidence on this.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a deterrent to anyone. I think it's been shown many, many times that it's not. It's a non-deterrent.
Yeah, well, that's right, because I don't think many people who are about to kill someone think, if I get caught, I might cop the death penalty. Most people think that you're only going to kill someone if you think you're not getting caught. So, yeah, probably a bit of a
so no, I mean, that's a poor argument. I don't think that applies. I don't think that's a reasonable argument to put a death penalty in place. No.
All right, what about it eliminates the chance they might escape?
It eliminates the chance that they may... No, stupid argument.
It is a stupid argument, you're correct.
No, that's really clutching at the straws.
If that is in fact your argument, I would say, well, make your prison better.
Yes.
Rather than let's kill everyone rather than do that. The other thing I was when we touched on this before, is it better to eliminate someone's freedom forever or to kill them? So killing someone is an act of revenge. That's the thing we talked about before, which I think feels a little childish.
I think that's really the real problem, right? The problem is the death penalty is seen as an act of revenge. But why is locking them up forever not seen as an act of revenge? If I can say to you that the death penalty is an act of revenge, couldn't I extend the argument and say, well, so is locking them up forever?
You could see it as a case of social quarantine. That's sort of what it is.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe that's what they should rename it.
Okay.
Social quarantine.
No, that's a good point. I like that argument. That's a good point.
The revenge part, though, mostly. I mean, I think I've seen a lot of videos and things on serial killers, and I remember that any time there's someone about to be executed, a serial killer, there's a big crowd of people out there cheering it on and chanting and saying, "Yeah, bring it on." They're out for revenge, but isn't revenge only given by someone who has had the wrong done to them in the first place?
Absolutely.
So it's you rather than it being a revenge, you've got this mob mentality where they're baying for blood. But why? Surely they're the last people we should be asking for their opinion. If you're so easily led into wanting someone to be killed, I don't mean to cheapen the deaths that the criminal has undertaken or killed or carried out. But if you've got all these people standing there saying, "Yeah, let's do it," I'm not sure they're the ones we should be listening to.
No, look, I don't think they are, and yeah, I think with the death penalty, again, as I said, it's more seen as an act of revenge, and that's probably the issue I have with it and why I'm not comfortable saying, yes, this is definitely the track we should go down.
Yep.
But as our mate Audio Pete has mentioned, I like the concept of social quarantine, and I think that is an important thing to think about, because that takes into account the fact that the person may have some sort of mental affliction, and that's why they've done this act.
Isn't this that's more of a traditional concept as well? The exile. You're exiling someone from the tribe.
Well, it is, yeah. But then the civil libertarians may come back and say, well, no, you can't do that either. You can't socially quarantine. In which case, I would socially quarantine the civil libertarians. Because seriously, Mike the Llama, if you honestly can't execute a punishment on anyone, and you can't because of their liberties, then what's the point of it all?
Yeah.
Right? What's the point? At some point you've got to go back to reality. It would be nice if you'd say, well, look, you've murdered this guy, not very nice. 5 years rehabilitation, take these pills, do this act, and everything will be fine. And make whatever compensation to the victims that you left, whatever. That would be nice if you could do that. It's not the way reality works. It really isn't. It really, really isn't.
What about another one here? So we live in Australia. There's no capital punishment.
No capital punishment.
What about when someone an Australian strays into another territory, and there's one I think at the moment in Singapore, maybe, or Bali.
Oh,
I'm
yes.
not sure, where they commit a crime. Which,
good question.
doesn't necessarily seem like it would be something that if we did have the death penalty here that we might want to use it, whether it's, drug trafficking or I had this amount of drugs on me for my own personal use, but bad luck, we're going to execute you. I mean, we've had several Australians, Bali being a place we like to travel to, Singapore as well, who have Australians who've travelled through there, been caught with the drugs, and that's it. Tough. Executed. Should we be lobbying for their release? Should we be lobbying for? I think part of the options that they had for some of the Bali bombings people were they can come across, not Bali bombings, Bali 9, that was they can come across here and serve their sentence here rather than getting executed in Indonesia. It's not quite an even swap.
No. I feel really uncomfortable with that.
Okay.
I feel really uncomfortable with that because, you are entering into a different country. You're going to the jurisdiction of other people.
Yep.
Right? Whether you agree with that jurisdiction or not is really not that relevant. But you have to respect if you've made a decision to enter that jurisdiction, you need to respect that jurisdiction, don't you?
Yeah, but criminals don't respect their own jurisdiction, so why would they start?
Well, then you must abide by whatever the jurisdiction says. If the jurisdiction...
But that's the criminal. What about the government? So the government has a responsibility. No, hold on. Our government has a responsibility if one of their one of the population travels somewhere else, citizens of the word, travel somewhere else and gets into trouble.
Yeah,
they have some responsibility to help them out. How far should that help extend? Should it be lobbying someone else to forego their laws of I'm going to kill you because you've committed this crime and say, well, no, we won't. I'm not sure it's actually worked anywhere yet, has it? I can't think of anyone who's been given the death penalty who's been an Australian. Oh, maybe there was an Aboriginal guy in America who killed someone, and I think they might have. Again, that was mental impairment. That was back in the 90s, I think. Yes, no references, and just having a conversation with myself. Anyway, so is it worth our government getting involved to the extent where they say, well, don't kill them because we don't agree, even though that's your law?
Look, I think it sort of is okay for the government to get involved. Again, I would come back to it and say, I have to come back to the economics of it. I've got no choice. I have to come back to the economics of it. If it's going to cost millions of dollars to look at these people and try and get them off, then I've got to look back and say, well, why am I wasting this money? These people should not have gone into Indonesia with drugs. It's not like there's evidence to where people have done this and died. Why are these people doing this?
Okay, so what about places where we're not quite as trusting of the legal system as we might be of our own legal system?
It doesn't matter whether we're trusting it or not.
No, but as far as the guilt of the person is concerned.
If you said to me that a gay person has gone in to Syria or one of these anti-gay places, and now that country wants to kill them because they're gay, I would say to you that we should use every fibre of our being to try and get that person out of there.
Yeah.
Right?
Because it's not a crime they've actually committed.
Right. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
But if you're saying, having said that, I would say that the gay person has been quite foolish in going into a country that knows that their life preference or their lifestyle is not supported.
You're not victim blaming, are you?
What if it's their family? What if they're going back to see their dying father and their...
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
There's always these tricky situations.
Then yes. I mean, I've got nothing to say against that. What I would say ultimately is what I've just said. If a gay person, and I'm using that only as an example, right? If a gay person went into, I don't know, Iran or Syria or one of these dickhead places that have no respect for anyone, right? And they were going to be executed because they were gay, then yes, our government should spend every freaking bit of resource to save that person and do what they can to get them out of there. Right? Absolutely no question. But But if a person's gone into Indonesia...
They make them the same countries. They've gone into
same
the same
country, whatever.
Yeah.
They've gone in with drugs. They've been caught with drugs. Now they're going to get executed.
Allegedly.
Well...
But hold on, this is the part that I'm questioning. Do we trust their legal system? Do we trust their police? Do we trust their...
Well, no, I wouldn't. No.
So then why would we put... So if they're
No,
found guilty...
but I'm assuming it's been shown to the government, say, that it's been shown beyond a reasonable doubt that the government, that the person had that stuff on them, that the person did commit the crime. Then in that case, no, we shouldn't do anything. And certainly in the case of, say, the Bali Nine, it was shown unequivocally. I mean, the federal police almost had a hand in it, didn't they? Didn't they warn the Bali police, oh, these people are going to come to Bali and do this?
Yeah, I think that was... Yeah, I'm not sure whether that was proven or not, but yeah, that was something that was said, that they'd given them a tip-off, I believe. Or was that for the Chappelle Corby one?
Oh, I don't know. No, I think it was for that one.
Yeah, I'm not sure. They all blend in together, unfortunately.
Yeah. So...
yeah, it is tricky, because it comes down to, for me, for this particular part of it, it comes down to whether you trust that government, whether you trust the people, whether you trust the police and the legal systems of another country. I don't even trust them in this country half the time, so it's hard to know.
Right. You're right not to trust the system. Absolutely, no. I mean, you don't... Anyone that trusts the government or trusts a system that is built from the government is, you've got rocks in your head if you're going to trust that system. Don't trust anyone. And no, I agree. You wouldn't trust. You certainly. I mean, why would you trust, say, the US over Indonesia? Would you trust
not at the moment
the US over Iran? Or no, I wouldn't. You'd be insane to fucking trust the US. You crazy? No, they'd be some of the biggest liars in the world, and that's been shown historically. No. I'm just saying, it is a difficult one to say, but. If I'm travelling to another country, I have to do so.
The onus is on you to know what the frickin' hell you're walking into.
That's right. Yeah. I've got to do so knowing that that's the jurisdiction of the... I mean, and I've travelled, as you know, I've travelled quite a bit. And whenever I have travelled, I've often had to, say, take medicine with me. I didn't sit there making an assumption that I could just... take that medicine with me, which I think a lot of Aussies do, and I think a lot of Americans do. They simply assume because they're fucking Australian or they're fucking US that they can just fucking do anything they like. Well, you know what? You deserve everything you get. Because I didn't make that assumption. I checked to see, A, whether I could bring it in at all, 2, whether I needed a doctor's note, and if I couldn't bring it in, I didn't bring it in, right? I just didn't. And I had to just live with the fact that I didn't have that medicine. The same applies in every other direction, in everything that you can come up with. I may not be able to take, I don't know, like I think in some Muslim nations you can't bring in Christian literature, right? Now, why would I do that anyway? I'm not going to bring in any Christian literature, but if you are a person who's going to bring in Christian literature and then going to be arrested, and maybe you're facing the death penalty.
It's very tricky to complain about it.
Right, you can't just simply then say, oh, well, come and save me. No, fuck you. It's like that guy that went to that Christian mission that went to that island.
The island, he got eaten
and then the cannibals or whoever the people on the island killed him. Yeah. I'm sorry, I don't have any fucking sympathy for you because you went there.
He was trying to save them, and he probably did because they got to eat that night.
Yeah. Quick one for you.
Yes.
Ivan Milat is about to die.
He is. He's just been gone. He's just taken to hospital, I believe.
Yes.
Has
justice been done? In your eyes, is it better that he's lived these years in prison?
So Ivan Milat, the backpacker killer, a very famous case from the 90s. Has he been punished enough?
No.
No, I would argue that I'd like him to live a bit longer in pain.
Oh yeah.
I'm happy for him to live longer in pain.
Yeah, but he could never be punished enough.
The problem is he can't be punished enough because he's never admitted to doing it.
Well, even if he did admit it, he could still never be punished enough.
No. Well, yeah, okay, that's fair enough. But I'd like him to just hurt a little bit more because he's still.
Does he have kids? I think he has.
Oh, I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So the only way, in my view, that he could be punished enough is if you were to execute and torture his kids. Which I'm not saying.
We're not condoning that kind
I'm
of...
not saying that should happen, because now you're punishing someone who didn't do anything wrong. So I'm not saying you
I'm
should
glad
do.
you're acknowledging that. Yeah.
That means what you're saying is we can't really get real justice.
No, you
when
can't.
those things
No,
happen.
when you're at the point where you have murdered someone, or pedophilia, or you've changed a life in that negative way, you can never ever get that justice.
You could argue, though, he has had a bit of a rough time in jail. He's tried to kill himself several times, which is good. I have no problem with that. Go for it. If you want to do that, that's good. That's including like swallowing razor blades and trying to slit your wrist and things. No, I don't want to imagine that. He got beaten up a few times, which is nice. He now has cancer, which is nice. No offence, but so he is.
Yeah, but so what?
Well-
So what? You know, he dies, he's executed, he's experienced pain. The level of agony and the level of terror he's caused.
Yeah, it's never going to be
there's
commensurate.
no
to its
way you
award.
could ever compensate
No, that's
for
right.
that. No way.
no.
You know, no way.
All right. Anyway, well, I'm not sure we solved anything, or
No,
But-
no, I don't think we have. But I don't think we're here to solve anything.
No, I
what
don't
we're
think we
here to
are.
do
Thank
is
goodness
we're
for
here
that.
to change the bubble that you're in,
just to get you thinking.
potentially move you into a different bubble.
All right. Well, thank you again. We will see you next week.
So everyone,
for-
like, comment, and subscribe if
Yeah.
you like what we do here. We'd like to hear from you. Like to see some comments.
Yep. Thank you, Dr. Raven. Thank you, Audio Pete.
Thank you, guys. See you maybe on the next one.
You will.